A ransomware, first of all, is available as service. To mount a ransomware attack, I have to hire a person.
Absolutely.
I don't need knowledge. It's a industrial strategy. I hire attack on somebody who is my competitor. It can be nation, it can be international.
How do you feel that the cascade effect might lead or might collapse the overall system going forward?
It is happening. We are seeing in their daily life, cascading effect happens. Like in the CrowdStrike attack, there was multiple cascading effects of a patch update, which is not a cyber attack at all. It resulted in many cyber attacks. Like within an hour, 500 phishing domains started with CrowdStrike because people are searching for patch update. There was a need for people to search for patch updates. So there were 500 fake websites
Right.
within half an hour of the event. Because see, ultimately, we are in a state of dominance of how we like state actors.
Right.
You see the Russian-Ukraine war. The first phase of attack is cyber attack.
Right.
Even Israel-Hamas or Israel-Iran war, it's a cyber attack which keeps on happening one after the because they had a wall of defense. It was broken. Earlier, in the same wall of defense, even a squirrel could not enter.
Absolutely.
Now people could easily go kidnap people and come back safely to their side. That shows us a lot of unexplained events are there, which probably can be related to a cyber attack.
Hello everyone, I welcome you all on the Security Chips podcast. Today we have Mr. Paparaju with us, who is a distinguished expert in the field of operational technology. He has served as an executive director and chief information security officer at ONGC, where he spearheaded multiple critical projects in OT security space. So we welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be part of a DSCI initiative in spreading cybersecurity awareness and enabling the growth of cybersecurity in the nation, which is really critical nowadays.
Thank you. So we have been part of many initiatives earlier. We have learned so many things from you. We have heard you across many forums. So with this, I mean, post-retiring, what is that keeps you still excited about cybersecurity? What are the nuances that you still feel that you want to be a part of? And how do you engage yourself with the industry?
Basically, in cybersecurity, the operational technology is the least understood. So, because I had an experience of operational 30 years plus in OT areas, I can understand the security requirements, needs, and the process requirements and the business requirements of operational technology. And day to day, I see a lot of challenges in evolving, and a small incident somewhere else collapses, the entire world collapses. Like we have seen 3 incidents in the recent past. One is got a lot of limelight, publicity is there, where the CrowdStrike got affected with a patch update. So one small update somebody did in a Microsoft system, and all over many domains got affected, many, including news channels, got stopped. A lot of critical sectors are also got affected. Flights got affected, trains got affected. Then during the Paris Olympics, the first day there was no power. A lot of arson attacks were there, not related to cyber attack. But the second day there was no power in the nights. It was suspected to be a cyber attack. Many parts of Paris did not have power. And because so any incident happened, people are looking for publicity. People are looking have their own requirements. It has become easy to disrupt. And disruption gives them notice, gives them value. So it's like a terrorist attack happening to countries, which based on whatever is the reasons. Reasons can be many. There are state actors, non-state actors, people with grievances. People want to highlight the event to their own requirements. So cyber, because of the connected in the world, it has become easy to attack somewhere else. Anything which moves or anything which is away from the country. So the jurisdiction is also not there. So that is challenging, and knowing things, how to understand and how to bring resiliency, that gives a sort of a, if we defend properly, then it gives a sort of a good feeling that at least for the time being we are safe. So these are the challenges which excite me.
Great. As you're a pioneer in OT security industry, and with such a wealth of experience that you have, could you share your journey from a young engineer to leading security efforts for a major public sector oil and gas company? What are the key experience that shaped your journey, sir?
Well, when I graduated from college, at the time the automation was the very less. Microprocessors were coming into picture. Computers were just exotic items, not available to everyone. If somebody has a network, say a computerized system, then it was very great to work on it. We call it Z80 systems and all. We were experimenting with that systems. And A to D conversion also we learned in the college up to conversions only. Whereas industry was a bit ahead of the
Right.
academics.
Right.
And specifically, oil and gas has a lot of automation inbuilt in it, specifically because most of the technology is imported in offshore, and seismic data acquisition has been a pioneer. So, what you learn in college and what you would practically face in the world, there are heavy difference. So, we are forced to learn basically from your colleagues, from your seniors. Specifically in seismic, it was a big challenge because the availability of resources was not there. We didn't have any online material, we didn't have internet.
Right.
We had to depend on books, and I used to roam around Flora Fountain second-hand market on the footpaths, looking for electronic magazines
Right.
to understand and to get connected and know what's happening in the world. So I remember those days. So those were the days, and now things are migrated. Like information is available at a click. It can be good, it can be bad. How to put to use is in the hands of the owner of the data. So these are we have seen a lot of transition. Communication systems have changed. We didn't have mobile. We had to depend on wireless communication. Now landlines were scarce. Now communication is available. Like if I went home from my native place to my job, only when I wrote a letter, my parents would know I had reached safely.
Right.
Now every hour, parents are after the children. Where are you? Where are you located? Even myself. So it is not. So communication has changed the way we live, the way we communicate with each other, and the way we do our work and personal and professional life.
Right. So, sir, with your experience, what are the most significant OT security challenges that you have seen or faced across sectors, oil and gas, power sector, or the manufacturing sector? So, how do you differentiate the traditional IT threats, security initiatives, or issues specifically to the OT security issues?
When we joined the industry, when I say me means my colleagues and myself, when during this, 80s and late 80s, the systems were isolated. They were standalone systems. There was no business requirement for data to flow from OT to IT area. IT was also progressing a lot. A lot of changes were there in IT, and rapid changes were there in IT because of communication, lease line, fiber optics. There were a lot of transition happening in IT, but OT was sort of secluded and isolated. So whatever happened in OT area was remained isolated to the OT area. But slowly, as technology progressed, the ease of IT technology, the rapid scaling up of the IT technology allowed the IT technologies to enter into the OT area. And the business requirement also came that there was OT data has to flow to IT. There has to be convergence between OT and IT. Nowadays, the business doesn't demarcate between OT and IT. If data is there, because we call it data-driven decision making. If a business decision has to be made on data, at what level you make the decision? Is it at local level, central level? What is the nature of the business decision? So those are the important challenges which happen. And typically, the order of when we say in IT systems, it is called CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, which is the order of merit on which the systems have to be first confidential, then integrity of the system should be there. Third is availability. In IT system, if I do a patch update, I can reboot the system. Whereas in OT, it affects the process. So the challenge is the CIA is in a reverse order. Availability of the equipment is very critical because the equipment is used to run a process. Right. Mostly, and this process are basically very critical process. We cannot shut down. Like in a power plant, if you shut down a gas furnace, it takes time to cool off, and the laws of physics takes over.
Absolutely,
the disruption is heavy. Even for a normal shutdown, even for a tripping logic, if some safety logic is there.
Right.
So even if there is a oil and gas industry, if there is an aeroderivative gas turbine driven process gas compressor or a power generation, it takes at least 1.5 hours to reboot and complete normalize the system. So availability is very critical for a process industry. So this is in a reverse order. And the challenge is in OT, the life of equipment is a minimum 20 years. Because it's a mechanical equipment, the control system is to drive the mechanical equipment. Whereas in IT, the life of equipment is 5 years, and nowadays sometimes, depending on system, it is less than that. So you cannot reboot, restrap, and replace the systems in OT area.
Absolutely.
So that's the big challenge. And as time progresses, suppose there is an IT, there's a computer in OT area, you have a antivirus system. Because of the patch update, the antivirus system cannot run on an old system. So you cannot have even antivirus running on an obsolete system, because even the virus updates itself.
Absolutely. I think you rightly mentioned that in a process driven environment, the security thinking has to be pretty different. Since I understand this because I come from an power sector background, as you rightly mentioned, that for a even after the turbine trips, that's a safe trip that happens. It takes almost 30 minutes to coast down, because with the inertia from 3000 rpm, it comes to, let's say, 2 rpm in the TG mode. So that's how the critical things are going forward.
Yeah, and there is a thermal cycle.
Absolutely.
Because material cannot be cooled off it has to be gradually cooled. Otherwise, the material is going to crack.
Absolutely. I think
stress and strain, thermal stress needs a lot of factors to be done.
So this brings a lot of risk, and with this, I would like to ask, when we live in an environment wherein we live in a connected world altogether, wherein I personally feel that every sector is now getting to become, or has already become, a critical sector, wherein everybody is getting connected, and it can definitely take a lot of impact, or gives a lot of impact on the society, wherein even if a sector as nuanced as a manufacturing unit, which, let's say, provides a o-ring to a critical unit of a hydraulic system inside a power plant, which might ultimately stop the unit, right? So wherein we live in this world wherein things are connected, how do you feel that the cascade effect might lead or might collapse the overall system going forward?
It is happening. We are seeing in their daily life, cascading effect happens. Like in the CrowdStrike attack, there was multiple cascading effects of a patch update, which is not a cyber attack at all. And
Right.
it would have led to many of cyber, and it resulted in many cyber attacks. Like within an hour, 500 phishing domains started with CrowdStrike, because people are searching for patch update. So there was a need for people to search for patch updates. So there were 500 fake websites
Right.
within half an hour of the event, which were taking the people to somewhere else, leading to phishing attacks. So there are multiple cascading effects are happening, because see, ultimately we are in a state of dominance of how we, like state actors.
Right.
You see the Russian-Ukraine war. The first phase of attack is cyber attack.
Right.
Even Israel-Hamas or Israel-Iran war, it's a cyber attack which keeps on happening one after the, because they had a wall of defense, it was broken. Earlier, in the same wall of defense, even a squirrel could not enter.
Absolutely.
Now people could easily go kidnap people and come back safely to their side. That shows us a lot of unexplained events are there, which probably can be related to a cyber attack. Because there is a book called Art of War.
Right.
By Sun Tzu.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's a famous book, philosophy book of Chinese. It says the best way to fight a war is not to fight the war.
Absolutely.
So it's a philosophical statement. One has to go in depth, but cyber gives that practicality to it, because you can fight a war from your room. You can fight a personal war. A group can fight a group war. A nation state can train its cyber attack and focus on a major cyber attack war, because you can cripple a nation. Because ultimately a war is one based on logistics. If you have weaponry, how do I supply that weapons to the front line? That is, the logistics are there. So if I cripple the economy, I cripple the power, logistic, the critical sector of the country, then 90% of the battle is won.
Absolutely. I think they rightly mentioned, since this gap between an OT and IT is now getting vanished. So, sir, during your tenure, you must have come across many of these critical challenges wherein this OT IT convergence point would definitely would have been a headache for you, or would have been a challenge for you, so to say. What was your strategies at that point of time? How do you cope up with that risk at that point of time? And going forward, what would you advise the audience to specifically look into the critical things between the OT and IT convergence?
OT and IT convergence are basically is happening because of the driving forces, I would say three major factors. One is management is day by day not trusting the people in the field for correct reporting of data. So they want no human intervention in the data. Like DPR earlier, you see a gauge, you report it, and then you convey, type it.
Right.
So there is a error mechanism. There is a human error which can come in. So management wants data to flow. The business wants data to flow from the sensors to the IT layer, direct dashboards, right, without any human intervention. That's one thing. Second thing is there are a lot of analytics has come. Now, a aircraft manufacturer doesn't sell aircraft engine. He sells availability of the engine.
Right, sir.
So when you sell an availability of an equipment, of a process, availability of a DCS, then vendor says, the OEM says, give me the data, I will help you out. So he says, I handle 1,000 plus equipment. My equipment is all over the world. I have the necessary knowledge, the R&D, I have the team. You give me the data. So if we want to give the data because of an operational need for a business model to the OEM, if you want to share the real-time data, then the data from OT has to be integrated with the IT area. Because without layering, because traditionally we have a perimeter defense. The IT comes, then the OT is the core, we call it the onion layer, peel layer, or the castle and mode policy.
Right.
So that is a typical traditional mode. In traditional mode, the IT layer has to be crossed for any OT data to be sent to the IT, to the vendor. That's another thing. And third is because of the digitalization or the advantages of digitalization, the boardrooms want data to be displayed right at the tips. They want the data in the mobile. Because decision making, if you have the data, decision making is reliable, quicker, faster.
Absolutely.
And to improve the the business decisions, data is to be available at tips. So if I want to see my data, what is the production now, I need to have it, what is the manufacturing now, what are the glitches, it should be available immediately. So we call it data driven decision making. So this is also driving the integration between OT and IT. So I think these are the three major factors which are driving and the technologies are nowadays common between IT and OT. Earlier they had different technologies. Now a lot of technologies commonality is there. How to make the role and access model, role and identity and access management is like a common module for OT as well as IT. Then a lot of directives have come from the government like time synchronization. So if I want to time synchronization, if I plug as per the government directive, I can take a signal from the National Physical Laboratory.
Absolutely.
So there is a signal coming from the National Physical Laboratory of a government of India to across all the industry, which is mandatory. Or I need to have an independent system which is more independent than that. So the challenge is the signal virus free or malware free?
Absolutely.
Because I am depending on a signal which is coming outside my perimeter on which I don't have control.
Right.
So what is the alternative to that? Can I have a standalone satellite-based, GPS-based signals? Now, satellite-based GPS time syncs GPS is a Department of Defense project of US. So you are at the mercy of a Department of Defense. So in case of a problem, will you have what is the error code that can be put into the system? So these are a lot of technical challenges that have come up when we integrate OT and IT.
Thank you, sir. I think with your example of the availability, engines availability, I could resonate that with Rolls-Royce example that they give specifically for the availability that has to be there for a critical device such as engine of an aircraft. So I think you have rightly mentioned that. And with your thoughts, with India's industrial landscape, which is huge, right, from all sectors, and we have cyber physical systems almost in every domain now, be it healthcare, be it automotive, be it aerospace, power and oil gas, as we know. manufacturing to be very precise. I think what would be your suggestions on the capability building side? How India should look to build its capability, because this is going to be a huge challenge as we get digitized and we get connected. So what would be your suggestion in that, sir?
Every organization suggestion would be, first I would say that they should need to have an OT policy, because there are multiple systems, and any organization, based on the business, as it expands, as it grows, it tenders, typically in Indian public sector or even private sector. So there are different vintage systems coming into picture. So a policy should be there which will define a common architecture and define a common cybersecurity standards for OT area. Because unfortunately, cybersecurity, when it's added as a portfolio,
Right.
which has a cost component. And when we tender, when we do the L1 basis, cybersecurity is removed.
Absolutely.
So I normally say we should have a secure by design approach. Typically, when we say secure by design, like I normally refer to a door handle. Like if this door is there, don't know whether to push or to pull.
Absolutely.
Whereas in the Western American concept, where it is more structured thought process is there, a horizontal lever is on one side and a vertical lever is on one other side. The handle is horizontal for
Absolutely.
push. For pull, it is vertical.
Right.
And nowhere it is written. But in India, the door opens both ways, many areas. If I say pull, if I push it, doorways opens both ways.
Correct.
So we don't have, the standardization of the thought process should come from that angle. Because unless we develop standards, if we say pull and if I push also the door opens, then there is no main point in having a push and pull logic over there. So typically the OT also entry, is the data allowed to go outside, or is the decision making coming inside? There has to be clarity in the architecture of the thought process, and data has to be seen that data can be reported. It's only viewed, not decision making should not be distributed across geographical layers. Right. Decision making should be, personally I would feel decision making should be at local level, where the teams are always there. India is human and a lot of human manpower, technical high skilled manpower. So we are not working in Alaska or sort of very cold country where we can't put the manpower.
Absolutely.
And the data has to be taken out for even decision making.
Right.
When I say decision making, it's a control loop. Like if the process parameter something, some rectification action is to be taken.
Right. Sir.
So what is the decision? So if we take a decision across geographical layers or across in a vast territories, then the person who is interacting with the decision can definitely change it. But there are technologies where now new technologies have come, like drones.
Right, sir.
Drones, you see the US Predator drone, they are controlling war in the Middle East through an operation in US.
Absolutely.
So that gives them a very advantage benefit. So drones and IoTs and technologies, there are called disruptive technologies, which do not come into the traditional perimeter defense. And they are in the OT area. Now with a drone, there is anti-drone systems also.
Right, sir.
Yesterday I was seeing a video of a drone where on a hillside in India, on a mountain in maybe the Uttarkashi or some area, cement bags were being transported by drones.
Right.
From the road to the opposite side where there is a big ravine in there.
Right, sir.
So a lot of effective users there, but the drone also misused in the India-Pakistan border. We get to know that drugs are being used same way. So technologies have come, but how to use the technology, in what way they are used, this is going to be a big challenge.
Absolutely. I think the way you mentioned about how things should be looked after from the design perspective, because being in a power plant, I recall things wherein we used to make system in such a way that even if the operator wants to make a mistake, the system doesn't allow him to make a mistake. So I think I rightly said that the design should be taken care of well, right, for the people, process and technology, and across three domains, to strengthen the overall OT security initiatives.
Yeah, I think you also asked the question on capacity building.
Absolutely, sir.
Now, I find it surprising that in OT, typically we normally follow IEC 62443 standard. We define any OT system is defined as it be it PLC, be it different DCS or any process control system, turbine control system. It is typically said IEC 62443 is followed. But unfortunately, very few organizations have trained manpower in IEC 62443. There is no structured program. Organizations don't have the policy document.
Right, sir.
People are not aware of, and what you read is only a transcript of a short brief of the standard, but
Right,
not
sir.
in depth of standard. So what should one do to implement the standard? Typically, an audit is to be done to identify the gaps. Any audit is done in an IT system, but in
Right.
OT, the audits are not done properly. Because, first of all, OT policy has to be there. When we do an audit with reference to what standard? So people have to be, there has to be internal audit team trained on IEC 62443 standard to understand what should be there, what is already there, and the gaps, so that the gaps can be addressed.
Right, sir.
So we need that capacity building, the awareness and trainings in 62443 standard or any other OT standard, typically for like CCTV. A CCTV has open VIF standard where the data, there are 3 data outputs. Every CCTV has an IP address, so it can be used a lot for the bot attacks.
Right, sir.
So how effectively of a man, and CCTV is a very common. Every 1,000 rupees you get a CCTV, people plug in. There are sites where you can see the CCTV which is available exposed to net.
Absolutely.
And world over you can see the CCTV at your homes and the public. Any data which comes in the public is available.
Right.
And people are selling data.
So, with with the capability building, I want to extend this question. In most of the organizations nowadays, since now people are much aware about OT security and this taking a lot of initiatives in this direction, but specifically from the OT security point of view, we have seen cases wherein in an organization it is normally maintained by the industrial control system teams or the C&I teams or the instrumentation control teams, and they are pretty dependent on the IT teams to maintain their firewalls or switches, because they have the skill sets to maintain the process and the control instrumentation part of it, but still they lag in the devices, specific devices like firewall switches configurations, which they are dependent on the OEM, and there is less skill set that is available at site level, wherein they can regularly check those devices, those logs. So what is your perspective, being in a sector wherein you have driven things on such a large scale? So I take example of ONGC, which is such a big organization, power sector, let's say NTPC, which is such a big organization, and they have those capabilities built in house. But for the organizations which are yet to start, or maybe small manufacturing units in small, medium scale enterprises. So, what do you think that an organization should do to build this gap in the OT and IT team? And is it a right time wherein people should have a specific OT team in their organizations?
Organizations have OT team, but the challenge is what we teach in colleges doesn't match the industry requirements and the industry availability of the equipment. Like I studied Bernoulli's theorem in the college.
Right, sir.
But I haven't actually operated any, I haven't seen instrumentation.
Right, sir.
But when I come into an oil and gas industry, I had to learn again pneumatics, 4 to 20 milliamps current.
Absolutely.
And again, you have 0.2 to 1 kg pneumatic flapper and nozzle systems and all.
Right, sir.
So we have to develop expertise in pneumatic and hydraulics because it's a combination of pneumatic, hydraulics and electronics.
Absolutely.
Nowadays. So there is a separate team. Now we cannot distinguish these traditional electronics banda ye karega, instrumentation team does this, because instrumentation is a lot mechanical by nature, or electronic, but there is a human tendency, like you said, mentioned firewalls, to escape from the field duty.
Right.
Because slowly, IT and even in the industries are facing big challenges in attracting talent. The reason is software gives you more white collared or blue collared job. People want to less dirty their clothes less and less.
Absolutely.
So that challenge even inside an organization, when we distinguish between IT and OT difference, because OT, the dungaree becomes black in an oil and gas industry. In an IT area, it is neat and clean. and you have an AC environment. In OT
Right.
doesn't. So there is a human tendency also to be, our aspiration, it can be an aspiration, which needs to be addressed to specifically. So that's why the passwords are not shared. But normally like I am an electronics and communication graduate,
Right.
but I was working in instrumentation team because in the organization where I worked, it was a multidisciplinary team.
Right, sir.
So because we had people from different backgrounds in a multidisciplinary team, so OT sort of needs a multidisciplinary team approach.
Right, sir.
Where people have traditional skills but come together because the final output is a combination of all.
Absolutely.
So unless we have a multidisciplinary team capability aligned to standards and design principles, like because in OT, critical thing is more than this. The knowledge of process and instrumentation diagram is very critical.
Absolutely.
Because systems are so linked. One process affects what is the linkage process. It should be immediately thought
Absolutely.
process should be triggered in the mind.
Everything is cascaded.
Everything is cascading effect. Systems
Right,
are linked. So the knowledge of P and ID is most, somebody who has a P and ID knowledge, good knowledge, he is the most capable person in the, or sought after person.
Absolutely.
In OT area. So the approach is totally different. So multidisciplinary teams will deliver the goods in OT.
Right. I think rightly said, sir. I think you also mentioned about how these things should be driven from an organization point of view, right from top management in the organization to someone who is maintaining the critical things, or to a level wherein who is maintaining the device at the field level. So according to you, how does the organization build the culture of cybersecurity in this domain? How do people learn things about OT security? How an organization should approach to build this culture?
One way of is, there are multiple approaches. First is to build an awareness. And when we tender a system, secure by design should be a concept. Cybersecurity should be part of the system specification, not add-on. Because when we, as I said earlier, when we do an L1 tender, cybersecurity is a component which can remove if it is not mentioned in the tender.
Right, sir.
Because why should anyone, a person, ultimately a vendor has to sell his system.
Absolutely.
Why will he sell a beautiful system which is cyber secure when I don't ask for it?
Right, sir.
He will remove the system and put it an add-on cost later on, and it will be much more than that. So secure by design, and if I don't take it, I am vulnerable.
Absolutely.
As long as I don't protect myself, the vulnerability is there. So secure by design as a concept should be there as a part of all tenders. Then because supply chain monitoring also needs to be done as a part of tender. If I give some order to somebody, he should also have a certain cybersecurity matrix protection mechanism in place, which can be defined in the normal process tender, which is not happening as of date. People are talking, but people are not implementing it.
Right, sir.
Because of the problems it faces. There will always be problem. And I normally say to do a long jump, one has to start with small steps.
Right, sir.
So cybersecurity is one such thing. If you want to do a long jump and a big jump, we need to take the small steps.
Absolutely.
And the speed has to increase in the space. So delivery is also most important.
Right.
Instead of talking, we need to deliver the goods. The team has to deliver the goods. And the approach, another approach, first is awareness, then the phishing attacks. What can go wrong? Tabletop exercises. Like typical case study is in, what do we learn from case studies? In the war between Ukraine and Russia, it started not now, it started in 2017. The cyber attack started in 2017 itself.
Right, sir.
So there are a lot of case studies. One of the typical case studies is, the latest is about the local population lost internet. About 30,000 VSATs have gone. Now this time the VSAT, it is not a software attack. The firmware was corrupted.
Oh.
So the first time the hardware has to be replaced. All the VSAT antennas had to be physically replaced.
Right.
So it is now possible to attack the firmware, what demonstrated is, of a system. So if a firmware is a system, you cannot even boot it. So forget the application, whatever definition of perimeter and all, everything goes for a spin.
Absolutely.
So are we able to design the system so that my booting of the system can be secure? Can we do silicon root of trust server?
Right,
because root of trust is where the update happened, like in a CS update. Unfortunately, it happened with the digital signature itself.
Right.
Even that can go wrong. But normally, when we expect a OEM to push his patch tested, and how do you know that when we when we have your own devices, laptops, when we suddenly it says some updates are pending, we just put a click update.
Right.
How do you know the source of update is correct or not?
Absolutely.
How do you rate? Are you checking the source of update? Because there are multiple sources. People, as I said in the CS attack, 500 sources automatically came within half an hour saying they promised patch. So they would have driven a malware. So these are things which needs to be focused and all. And zero trust is one big concept.
Absolutely.
Zero trust network access. Zero trust is typically you trust no one.
Right, sir.
Like I typically say, when we all come out of small towns or cities also, when we go for different places, the parents tell us, when you go for first job, be careful, don't believe people.
Right.
You ask 3 people same thing, take 2 who answer directions are same.
Right.
When you take an auto rickshaw, don't trust him, ask the fare.
Absolutely.
Ask another guy. So ask.
Right.
Don't trust blindly.
Absolutely. I think you rightly mentioned in security also, I think we should take some examples from the control systems wherein you have 3 transmitters installed for measuring the level, wherein you don't take an average, you take a median value. And in case one fails, you take an average. So I think with that fail-safe mentality, I think we should definitely...
That is one area of triple redundant logic, we call it for critical systems. But in addition to triple redundant logic, there is another standard called API 14C specifically for American petroleum industry. Whereas there is a vessel.
Right.
How do you monitor a level? Physically, not just one tapping point. There are 3 different tapping points.
Absolutely.
In one, there is a local level gauge. Then there is a level transmitter from which I can draw level low alarm, level high, level alarms can be generated. Then apart from this, if there is a level high, there is a flash switch available, separate switch, level switch. If the levels are, the transmitter is giving a wrong signal, then physically there's a moment, there's a level switch also which comes active.
Absolutely.
So 3 different process parameters, any process parameter has to be measured at a 3 different angle, and the level high is integrated with the tripping logic.
Absolutely.
So there is a inherent design, so that's why I said secure by design concept needs to be there.
I think we rightly mentioned, I think we should take a lot of examples from the control systems to the cybersecurity world as well, specifically. As you rightly mentioned about how we should trust, we should look the source from where we are updating things, updating the digital signatures that we are getting. At the same time, this brings to a thought wherein now we are living in a world wherein a lot of emerging technologies have come. And we see nowadays everything next generation firewall, next generation SIEM. So this AI has altogether is coming in a big way in this cybersecurity domain. So among all the emerging techs like blockchain or AI or quantum, so to say. So which of the technology that you feel that can be utilized by the OT security world going forward, and how likely it is to that these technologies are being used at an engineering station level or an operator station level?
I would give priority to AI in the sense in OT layer. If you are considering a Purdue model, layer below 3.5, if I am doing a threat analysis, because data flow in OT is structured.
Right.
All the transmitters, there is a different address in which the data flows from this transmitter to this transmitter or this controller. So there is a structured data flow. If I have an AI engine at below layer 3.5, I can monitor anomalies in traffic. Behavioral analysis is more important now.
Right.
Which device is behaving what? Is it a structured defense or not? Because malware, these threats were horizontally. So behavior analysis is possible at OT layer at below 3.5 with AI engine. Because if I want to do my vulnerability test, I need to connect the OT to a centralized internet, the OEM manufacturer for the vulnerable CVE. So CVEs keep coming. So to update CVE, either I have to bring it through OT or IT directly. So with AI, I can bypass CVE.
Absolutely.
There is no need for CVE. I can do a behavioral analysis because my OT is structured.
Right.
That gives me a lot of flexibility in deploying area. Blockchain has its own benefits, but blockchain again, initially it came as a trusted to establish trust, but you need 4 different segments. But then you can define a logic, whereas majority, minority, democracy. So it is not like all 4. A lot of combinations have come. Blockchain can be defeated easily.
Right.
The challenges are wherever these cyber incidents have happened, to big organizations, it is mostly firewalls have been broken.
Absolutely.
So behavior analysis and criticality, how alert we are, and typical alerts happen in the weekends or holiday season, where the alert, and typically ransomware is a big challenge. Specifically in OT, how are we taking backup of OT?
Absolutely.
How am I isolating? If I am taking my hard disk, again, my hard disk, is it used for some other purpose? It can be easily corrupted. It can be taken away. Then am I validating my backup? Because in OT system, the BCP-DR concept doesn't come till actually it is required.
Right.
So drills are very important. So irrespective of the process criticality, to establish cybersecurity importance and have the testing of the backup. Because at the time of, if you don't validate the backup, let's say we take a backup in a LTO tape.
Right, sir.
Now LTO tape is stored in, if you see the specification of LTO tape, the maximum temperature is 35 degrees centigrade. Whereas often if you switch off the AC in India, the temperature crosses 35 degrees centigrade. So you have, are the tapes being stored properly?
Right.
So if the tapes are not stored properly, when the time comes, your backup is not going to work. Then what do we do?
Absolutely.
Not only backup, license. How are you maintaining the licenses of the software? Is it online? If it is online, I need to connect to activate it. So can I offline?
Right, sir.
So these are the critical things which need to be addressed at the design level only. Resilience. Because now the ransomware statistics tell that a ransomware, first of all, is available as service.
Correct.
So to mount a ransomware attack, I have to hire a person.
Absolutely.
I don't need knowledge. It's a industrial strategy. I hire attack on somebody who is my competitor. It can be nation, it can be international.
Absolutely.
One thing. Typically, the attacker in the ransomware stays 220 days within the network without getting noticed. And after identifying all the backups, after trying to enabling the encryption of the backups, only then he will launch an attack.
Absolutely.
So how are you maintaining the backups? So resiliency, because you can't keep hoping that something may go wrong and what to do and all. You have to assume things may go wrong. What should I do?
Absolutely.
How do I bounce back? What is my resiliency? That is the most critical. How do you test the employee's resiliency? Suppose there is a blackout in a power plant with a cyber attack.
Right.
Typically it happened in, I think, India, where one of the, even today it happens, all the layer 2, layer 3 switches, they have web interface.
Right.
One of the international threat hunting source said that they are coming with a BOA webware,
Right.
which is not updated because it's a free web interface. It is called BOA web interface, but it is not removed, it is not updated by the OEM of the switches.
Right.
We are using switches, but inherently they had a backend.
Right.
And attacks have happened because of that globally. Specifically, so if there is a blackout, what to do? How do I restore a blackout? Where is my license? Where is my backup? Typically, like in Active Directory gets it.
Right.
Identity and access management is gone.
Right.
So I may have 1,000 pieces which are not powered up, but I cannot operate it. So what is my scenario? So these things need to be thought of. Action plan, crisis management team should be aware of incident response. Different incidents, what can happen from tabletop exercises need to be developed.
Right, sir.
And resiliency is the critical thing.
Right. I think you mentioned about resiliency. If I may have to ask you, what would be the key steps for any organization to start this journey in OT security? So if you have to point it down from where to start to a roadmap to maturity, what would be your suggestion, sir?
First is understand what should be done in my OT. Right from the purchase, as I said, right from tender specs, what is my, and organization should have a common policy, common architecture, where the different, how to take data from OT to IT, there have to be a philosophy. Let's say you cannot make a data one way beyond a certain problem because let's say there is a communication breakdown is there. My layer 1 is connected to top layer. Let's say I have 2 layers.
Right.
My field is getting connected to the corporate headquarters. There is a communication back, but my data, there is an interruption. So there has to be a mechanism of handshaking where my old data, the interrupted data has to flow.
Absolutely.
Unless there is handshaking, the receiver has to tell, I have not received this much data. The source will never know.
Correct.
So even data diodes, implementing data diode is easy, but not practically possible in OT layer to some extent,
Right.
where the data handshaking has to be there. So the process is to be understood, the architecture needs to clash with it, and people need to be trained, capacity needs to be built up. Auditing of OT areas should be done to address the gaps, because what is cannot be everybody ultimately, it is like saying that you have a house, you go out to office, you come back, and your lock key doesn't work. Somebody
Right.
has changed the lock.
Right.
Then what to do?
Ab-
So can you break the door if possible? What are the alternatives? Is it always the destruction is there? If you break the door, can you replace the door? Then what? You have entered, then your door is open.
Absolutely.
Anybody can enter it. So there are multiple pronged strategy has to be there. With each stage has to be there. Ultimately, secure by design, audit, then team manpower, skill set has to be developed, and doesn't come in a day. It's a thought process. Like management support has to be there, and ultimately, fundamentally, one thing is to be understood: cyber security is not a technical risk.
Right.
It is a business risk.
Ab-
And if an organization is exposed to cyber attack, has to pay ransom, it may lose, it may shut shop.
Right.
So it is a business. One of the 8 business risk is a typical cybersecurity risk. So from a business risk model, how the risks are mitigated, risk model should be encouraged.
Absolutely. I think you rightly mentioned it is a business risk wherein the attack not just could be from the external world, it can be through your competitors as well. So going forward, as we see a lot of startups in cybersecurity are coming up from India. So they are working on various initiatives across the emerging technologies as well. So for a young professional or a startup, what would be your advice to start with? I mean, how should they look security as a perspective from an angle wherein OT security is given the prime importance?
The challenge for startups, which I think are facing, is any company when they develop a solution from a perspective. Typically, OT solution people need to deploy in OT test it. They don't have a test bed environment. So government can create an OT environment or government agencies, specifically from NASCOM or DSCI, where an OT environment, DCS is given to the vendors to develop solution or test the solutions, typical environment. And a lot of time is wasted by startups in doing POCs in every organization. Whichever organization they go, everybody says, show me your, how do you understand you have either show a customer list.
Right, sir.
Now, even the first customer, getting the first customer itself is the most difficult part for a startup. So what I've seen is government has still not rated. Somebody should be appointed by the government saying to, if a solution is developed, a test bed is given and the POC is done on the test bed and they certify, the panel of experts certify this product meets the specification. So they don't need to demonstrate the solution again and again, because demonstration and doing a POC doesn't give any advantage in tendering process.
I would come to my last question to you for today. So for India to head this initiatives in OT security and be a global OT security leader, what would be your advice for the cross sectors to come up with what kind of collaborations they should do to come up with a common platform wherein an OT security initiatives across Indias are taken care of in terms of the risk that are associated, in terms of the best practices that one is being following at their organization. So what would be your advice? So how do the cross sectors come up together to bring this as an overall strength for the country?
Basically, I would say that manufacturers and the consumers should come together, and through government agencies like DSCI, we are the enablers for this thing. To understand the cyber security, like a DCS is there, different vendors. What should be the minimum principles, security principle that should be defined in a DCS? Now, let's say everybody is going to cloud. That is a different, we haven't even discussed it. That's a complete different dimension at all. So what is the minimum security precaution which need to be taken? Because cloud, everything is a suite of service. Nobody is there having a data center now. And we will be forced, because if AI is coming, the generic AI, especially the LLM module, consumes 8 times more power than a normal the NVIDIA GPUs. They consume more power. So typical data center, if I want to put my LLM modules, I need high intensive computing, high energy power, which may not be there in the data center at all.
Absolutely.
So will be forced to go to cloud. Everybody will be forced to cloud within 3 years' time. If somebody doesn't go to cloud, it may be on specific application. Otherwise, I foresee that people have to go to cloud if they have to stay in the business. Otherwise, they'll be out of business. So then what is the minimum, like in a OT, or it can be, what are the minimum things that need to be picked up as a security precaution? That should be in the part of the specifications, and it should be understood. Like a CCTV, if I want a simple thing, a CCTV is being installed, I should look beyond picture and voice. I should understand the cybersecurity perspective, what can go wrong. That should be there as a part of the specification. So this is the starting point. From there, how people configuration, because normally people buy the system, don't configure it 100%. So configuration need to be audited routinely, regularly, periodically for gaps. Specific tools are there, but in OT, tools cannot be deployed beyond a particular level. But still, there are whatever tools are there to certain level, even those are not being enabled right now. See, I want 100%. At least let me get 50% done. Even if that happens, as I said, a long jump can be taken only by taking small, short steps.
100%. I think you rightly mentioned that small steps are very important. And with this, I think I would love to listen you whole day. But with the paucity of time, definitely we'll try to have another sessions also with you on OT security in depth for specific topics. So with this, I would like to thank you today, sir, for your presence at this podcast, and a lot of good insights, specifically a lot of learnings for me. So it will be for our audience as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate me calling, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to your audience.
Anytime, sir. I think we'll have more such sessions with you going forward.
Pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure. Thank you.